The following is brought to you by paulakers.net.
So today, without further ado, we're going to go off to Northern Ireland, Lumen Electronics. Paul, take it away.
All right, everyone, this is going to be very exciting. We have Patrick and Tom. They're the principals here at Lumen Electronics, and we're going to learn something very, very powerful. Let's rock and roll. It's all yours, you guys.
Great. I'm Tom Hughes.
And I'm Patrick McGee.
So welcome to Lumen Electronics. And today we're going to talk about why your 8 wastes may not be the same as Toyota's. Before we dive into that, Patrick's going to give a brief explanation of what we do here at Lumen.
So it might be a little bit different today. We manufacture and design, but we're primarily a design company. We design electronics, for example, the circuit boards, and we do the firmware, which makes the magic happen. And we now integrate those into products for our customers. So for example, we've got leak detectors, nurse call systems, and OEM machinery controls.
So I first met Patrick 2 years ago. I came here on a lean tour. My background's working with large mechanical organizations, and I also had a software company. But from the day we met, we were friends, and we very quickly decided to partner up together. And the first thing we worked on together was this product. It's a hand sanitizer dispenser. So Patrick designed the electronics, and I took care of getting the mechanicals designed and the supply chain of that. So that was our first product. And when we put our forces together, we were able to do electronics, mechanical, software. Our company built the Lean Play app for Paul Akers, which many of you may know. And we also take those products and launch them into production. So we're able to offer quite a unique service for our customers, because often there'll be 4 different stakeholders doing that for a customer. We can do it all under one roof.
We've been doing 2-second lean for about 2.5 years now, and the change is just phenomenal. You would not recognize this place from what it once was. And as we've been doing more and more manufacturing, that side of the business has been really seeing the benefits. But on the other side of the business, my side, which is design, we weren't really seeing the business, the same benefits to the business. I was still working Saturdays and Sundays, and I was having problems. Customers were happy, but they were only happy because of the efforts we were putting in. So I was saying to myself, hang on, I'm doing 2-second lean, I've got a great team, and I'm working hard. So, dude, where's my Ferrari?
So what happened was Patrick and I were kicking that around. I think, should we have a quick look at something? Yeah, just the kind of thing that we do at Lumen. So, you know, the 8 wastes, Ono's 8 wastes have really served us well on the products that we make. This is a fall detection sensor for healthcare systems. It's a complicated product designed, developed, brought to market here at Lumen. And we're competing with Shenzhen. So this thing used to take 25 minutes to put together from start to finish, including programming, testing, and assembly and pack. We now have this down to 6 minutes, and we can compete with Shenzhen. So wow. Ono and his wastes, we love, and they've been very useful for us. But it didn't stop Patrick losing Saturdays and Sundays pretty much for months on end. And I was watching this, and I was like, what are we going to do here? So Patrick had a Satori moment, as we say in Japan.
Mm-hmm. So I was watching a video with the wonderful Paul Akers and Norman Bodek, which we're going to play for you now. This blew my mind.
Okay, Paul Akers said to me not too long ago that only 2% of American companies are doing lean. Why? It's very simple. Ono identified what their major problems were in making cars. They had no cash at Toyota. They couldn't even get a loan from the bank. He looked at the inventory, he says, that's where our cash is. So he focused on eliminating the inventory, and he came up with 7 wastes, which is wonderful. Now, everybody in the world is doing lean, but why aren't they getting lean? Because they haven't redefined what their problems are, and they haven't come up with the ways specifically for their problem. The hospitals, in the example, are killing 450,000 people every year in America.
So that's their waste.
And they look at the same ways that Toyota set up to make cars.
Excellent. So it's not just the 7 wastes, it's the waste that's specific to what your organization is producing.
That's what you got to do. You identify the main strategic problems, and then you come up with the solutions to eliminate those problems, and you might call them waste, and then you go after those wastes. What are we doing to kill?
So here's the
people?
bottom line. Your waste is not Toyota's waste.
Yes, absolutely. It's so
So I can't put that any better than Paul and Norman put it. That was an amazing moment for me, and I was straight on the phone to Tom. I was sending the YouTube link and WhatsApp. Like, I've got it.
Mhm. And I definitely did smell that he was onto something. But I won't say I was jumping up and down about it. So, Patrick, you worked on it for
6 months. We were back and forth, and a lot of discussion.
a lot of back to the muscles,
Yeah.
arm wrestling again.
Mhm.
And like, because Patrick was saying things like inventory and people using computer files as analogous to Ono's inventory. And it's just simply not
No.
true.
Mhm.
It's you're shoehorning a thing into a category, but it doesn't fit. And I totally agree with that. Like Ono's inventory was killing the company. Whether somebody has a few too many files on their server, it's not business critical, and it denigrates that waste. So with a lot of those type of arm wrestles, Patrick and I, but mostly Patrick, came up with our 8 wastes for the electronic engineering process here at Lumen. So we're going to talk to these wastes today, not every single one, but the ones we think that might be portable to other companies, so they might get an insight into what our thought process was to come up with the 8 wastes that really matter to us. So we're going to start with the first one.
Yeah, when we call this the mother of all waste. Is that our mother of all waste?
So-
Overproduction is manufacturing, but ambiguity, project ambiguity, causes so many problems for us, and anyone in a design process.
So we're going to use an example of an actual development. This is a umbilical remote for a $500,000 piece of machinery. And the project started before I even met Patrick. And what happened was, like, this is potential to double the size of Lumen's business in terms of sales. So it's really, really critical. The electronics were nailed quickly. Mechanicals were challenging, but also nailed pretty fast. Production of purchase order raised by customer, getting ready to ramp up production, and somebody somewhere went,
Don't like the fit of the button, which is an entirely subjective opinion. But we had no paperwork, we had no agreement with the customer, and no agreement with their tooling supplier that had engineering terms. We should have been specifying that in newtons, and which we now have, and saying that X newtons to X newtons is the acceptance criteria. We didn't do that, and we were on the hook.
yeah. So basically, when we talk about things that are business critical, this cost us 18 months of lost sales. Thankfully, the customer has been very patient with us because they kind of acknowledged that they were, contributing to this issue. And we've had to retool all the plastics for that, re-engineer the product for something that was totally subjective, and it really caught us on the hop. So we've got a solution to that now that we do for all new projects, and have been doing for some months now.
Mm-hmm. So at the start of a project and ongoing throughout the project, we have clear documents and we have engineering criteria. We specify everything down to milliamps and volts and so on, and advise the customer at each stage. And where there is divergence from the expected outcomes, which there will be, we explain that to the customer and we check with them, is that okay at every stage?
So we also do what's called a discovery phase for large projects, where we'll spend a couple of weeks typically doing the basic engineering investigation work and developing those clear, unambiguous acceptance criteria for when we go into the project proper. We also have this issue in software development. Basically, because there's a knowledge imbalance between the customer and us, they typically don't buy software development every day. So we have to help them articulate what they want. So the typical things they forget about are, shall my mobile app work offline? We were caught in early days of that, because why does my app work offline? Well, you never asked us to. So we have checklists now to help the customer articulate what his requirements are and make them even. And then everybody's much happier. Just that way, there's no disappointments or surprises either side of the counter.
So our next waste we identified was variations, and that's technical variations in components and circuits that we use. So we do a wide range of products, but what we aim to do is reuse as many components as is possible between designs. And that's a particular problem for us because there's quite often a significant technical investment in choosing and getting to know a particular component. But this applies to every industry, to simple things like nuts and bolts. You want to be choosing the same nuts and bolts where possible, the same materials, and reusing those throughout your different products. It makes life easier for your purchasing department and your production department, as well as your technical department.
Mm-hmm. So one of the advantages here, again, it comes back to delivering good value to the customer, because we get to know a critical component like a processor and its idiosyncrasies, and we already eliminate uncertainty the more we use it. So it increases the certainty of delivery for the customer, and it reduces the likelihood that we're going to have non-value added activity running down a rabbit hole troubleshooting something that we shouldn't have had to do. So variation, or you could call it non-standard, is one of our key wastes. Mm-hmm. So next, Patrick, is one of your favorites.
My favorites, bad code. And this can be pretty specific. There may not be many programmers out there, but bad code doesn't just mean buggy code. Bad code could be code that works, but it's difficult to read or maintain. We've found that most of the time is not spent adding value, i.e. writing code. Most of the time is spent non-value reading code. You're not changing the material from one form to the next. So we've now implemented standards in our code. We all follow standard templates. We use the same software development. So when one of the other engineers writes code, I can read it, and vice versa. Or even if I write code now, in 6 months' time, I can read it.
So the critical thing there, just to emphasize what Patrick was saying, it is really analogous to value is only being added when there's physical transformation taking place. This is happening on a keyboard. So when code is actually being written, value is being created, not when it's being read. We have the same thing in pure software development. If bad code is difficult to understand and a customer comes back 2 years after an original piece of code is written, that engineer's left, we can spend 2 weeks reappraising the code before we can add any value by working on it. And nobody wants to pay for that, neither the customer nor us. So getting those code standards right and eliminating bad code really eliminates waste for Lumen Electronics and for our customers.
So next up is bad hardware. So a bad piece of hardware or a mistake in a hardware design can cost us weeks and weeks in development and can cause our customers a lot of pain. And I've come up with a little rule, and that rule is that the first page of any data sheet is written by the marketing department. So it doesn't matter if you're purchasing a component, raw material, a machine, or a sub-assembly. Never believe the front page of the data sheet. So I'll give you an example. This has just come up the other day. This wasn't planned for the tour, but I was looking for a replacement part. This one's gone obsolete, has supply chain issues. So I looked up the web, found this one, and if you look at here, you zoom in, John, thank you. Everything on the front page checks out. So normally, in the old days, I'd say, great, and I'd put that into production. And had I done that, we would have been having a lot of pain in about a month's time. So we've got a new standard. Every time we use a major component, we have to take the data sheet, however long that is, and the engineer has to sign each page. We read it, we go through it, we evaluate it, and we sign it to say that we've looked at that page. If there's nothing on the page that's relevant, that's okay. You sign the page, and that signifies that you've checked that out. But what I found the other night was on page 5 of this data sheet, there was a major issue that would have caused severe problems in production for the customer.
So the next waste is searching. And for those lean aficionados out there, they might think, but searching is just a subset of overprocessing. And this is a critical thing we're trying to communicate today. Call a waste what it is. So lots of the other forms of overprocessing aren't critical to Lumen, but we've got, as Patrick would say, more parts than Toyota. So because we're an R&D engineering company, we have literally thousands of small components. So to find that one thing could take, in the old days, 2 or 3 hours. So we have to do something about that's what loses us time, critical to us. So we have this system.
Yeah, so we have drawers, and this is all engineering stock. This is not production inventory. So we identified our cabinets with D numbers, and then each drawer with A down to G. We did that, and everything was nicely organized inside. We're still finding problems, especially when we moved to the new, better system. We knew where it was in the old crappy system, but when we moved to the new system, we're like, okay, where's everything at? But we come up with a very simple problem. We use what's not what, no big fancy ERP system. One of the guys here came up with a great improvement.
Hey Ryan, this is Ryan.
Hello.
And Ryan, we're using a simple Excel sheet here, no big fancy ERP systems. But Ryan's documented the contents of every single drawer in Lumen. And just to try it out, Ryan, find me an M3 lock nut there, will you?
M3. It's in D13A.
D13A. So
Okay.
you'll see.
We're going to have to put that to the test. You check out our shirts while we go.
Yeah.
Courtesy of Tom.
Yeah, we're on the world tour.
Yeah.
So you'll see there, each set of drawers has its own location. Done the same for the racks.
D13A. And it should be in here. Yeah. So we can find those easily. And in the past, that would have often caused, Tom's quite right, a couple of hours of the main thing is you're interrupting flow. You're in a flow state. You're trying to add value and you're excited to be creating product and creating new designs. And then you just can't find a resistor or a nut or a bolt or a cable. It's just very frustrating. So we identified that clearly as one of our wastes we had to solve, and we're going about solving it.
So the next one is a similar example. We call it interruptions. And I think for a lot of engineers, you're going to understand where we're coming from here. So follow me. This is a typical, it used to happen literally a few times a day, minimum here. But this is a typical scenario with Lumen. So one of the engineers will be deep in deep work. And that is a really good book, by the way, if anybody wants to read it, Deep Work. And typical thing is, oh, I need to know something. I have an information deficit, and the tap on the shoulder comes, and the e-stop is hit. Patrick, what's that like?
Yeah. Could you imagine if you owned a plasma, a CNC router, or a lathe, and someone walked up whilst the operator was working and hit the e-stop? Well, I think you can imagine what's going to happen on the factory floor. But yet we did that every day, constantly. We interrupted our value-adding machine, Sean. We took him out of a flow state to ask him a silly question. And we have a rule here that any non-creative discussion is a defect.
So that's a defect in information. And what we do now, we have a board that we use in the morning meeting. Let's go and have a quick look at it, where we record those instances where there was an information deficit. We don't tap the shoulder, and then this isn't like, made up for, that's just rough and ready, but it works. And then we'll find something like this morning, for example, I needed to ask you, John, what's going on with Stripe, because we're making a change to the website. And now that's up there. So we'll address that in the morning meeting and put a permanent corrective action in to make sure that interruption doesn't need to happen again.
That's key. A lot of people in Lean, we've often said, don't have any walls and have communication constantly between people. But we found out that wasn't what we should be doing. Every time we interrupt someone, we're taking out of the flow state. So to take that back to what T.H. Ono did when he created the Toyota production system, he turned all the other wastes into waiting. So if you had a defect or you had a shortage of inventory, that created waiting, and that was highly visible. So we don't interrupt the engineer. We let the problem come to the surface. We don't hide our waste. We let it come up there and we solve it.
So we have other wastes here, but unless people want to ask questions about it, we're not going to go through every one. But what I also do as part of what I do here for Lumen is I've coached other companies about how to do through a lean culture change. And what I've seen time and time again is that manufacturing people come straight in, even all the office and admin people want to engage. They tidy the office, they clean up their desktop, they do a 3S, and then the office people are going, right, what do I do now? And that is because the wastes aren't speaking to them. So those Ono's waste don't speak to the rest of the organization. And what we're saying here is you need to name your wastes. So I've been guilty of some BS, I hope I can say that. The typical way of saying it, sorry for speaking so long, but it's, oh, anything that the customer doesn't want to pay for, or that the company doesn't want to do more of, that's not enough. Name your waste. Leaders need to name your waste. Functional heads need to name your waste.
Yeah, you could, entire organization could have a different set of waste. For example, if you were a dentist or an accountant, none of the manufacturing waste would really speak to you. But even in a manufacturing company, you're going to have different departments. You might have design, you're going to have shipping, you're going to have purchasing, you're going to have sales, and those guys can all have their own 8 wastes.
So that's what we're saying. Basically, we found tremendous power by giving the waste a name. And that's really the conclusion of what we've discovered. So if it's searching, call it searching. If it's interruptions, call it interruptions, because you're conscious of it. Yesterday morning, for example, I'm on the phone to one of our key accounts. They want to have a Zoom review. Traditionally, I'd have looked over at Sean Son with his headphones on. Sean, are you okay for Friday? Now I just look at our calendar. Are we okay? Yes. Book the call. If there's a defect with the calendar, we'll fix the calendar. We're not going to interrupt that guy in flow. And that's the power of naming the waste. You'll see it everywhere when you name it. But if you don't name it and you leave it vague, people are going to get lost and they won't engage and they won't work on the waste.
Okay, so I think this was over the top powerful. I mean, this was deep, deep learning like probably we've never seen before. Let's open it up for questions now. We have about 7 or 8 minutes, 10 minutes. Richard, first question. Richard?
Yeah, I'm muting myself. First question, how long do you spend with the customer finalizing the project specifications? How do you make this approach fast and efficient? That's from Martin.
Right.
That's a great, it will depend on the size of the project, but we've had discovery phases or architecture phases that last up to a month. And to make that fast, it's not really about making it fast because that is value added. That's the start of the project. That's work you'll be doing anyway. So it's kind of like, instead of just guessing a number and starting work, you start work and then you arrive at a number with the customer.
So part of that process is engaging the customer in this way of working. So, you can ask 3 companies to give you a cost to do that development. Everybody's going to pad it out because nobody wants to make a mistake. Or you can properly engage with us. We're going to do a detailed discovery phase, analyze all the technical potential pitfalls and feasibilities. Most of the time, we'll give you a physical prototype at the end of it. And you've already done about between 10 and 20% of the project right there.
Yeah.
And then you give them a detailed milestone-based proposal with clear deliverables and very concrete from our side.
Yeah.
So the customer knows what they're going to get. Expectations are lined up. You need to engage the customer.
Next question.
Okay, next question. Love the shirts. I want one. Are they available to purchase?
Go on the Lumen website and email me. Yes, they are. Yeah, 100%. I was hoping somebody would say that.
Cool.
They're bitching. I love them.
I love it. Absolutely great. Next one. What question did you ask to identify and name your waste? That was from Tony.
Well, we started with the 8 waste. No.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that one, Patrick. I'm gonna take that one. Why don't I have a Ferrari?
Yeah, exactly. It does take a long time. We spent 6 months at it, and I started with the 8 waste in manufacturing. I started putting lines through them and sort of modifying other ones. Before we knew it, we'd kind of done away with pretty much all of them. We'd modified some of them into renamed and rejigged, and you'll find it difficult, but you have such amazing discussions with your team. It's so much value.
Patrick's bringing up another really important point. We believe our wastes are going to evolve. That this isn't static, because project ambiguity, for example, as we improve our process of that upfront work with the customer to make sure it's even expectations, that's going to stop being the mother of our wastes. In 12 months' time, I doubt that will be.
Interesting.
So
So in other words,
we
the
reckon you're
bottleneck,
gonna-
the bottleneck, you're
Will
removing
shift.
the biggest bottleneck, and the bottleneck will shift. Muy bien.
Yep.
I like it. Yeah. Okay.
and other
Next
wastes
question.
will surface.
Yeah.
Next
Let's
question.
go really quick.
I love this one. Interruptions, distractions, a fantastic ways to identify. But how do you balance creating a sense of urgency versus an interruption? That's from Alison. Seating matters. Good question, Alison.
Brilliant.
Yeah, great
Brilliant question. Thanks,
Mhm,
Alison,
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, well, our engineers don't get to, and I'm an engineer, so I wish this was the case. We don't get to just put our headphones on at 9 o'clock and stay there until 5 o'clock. We take breaks and we have structured meetings and so on. So if something's urgent, we like in production, then if we've got to make a call, do we interrupt? If a customer's waiting at the door, we will interrupt the engineer. But generally, we'll feel the pain. We'll make someone else feel the pain, bring the waste to the surface, make it visible. And that way, you'll not hide your waste. If we just keep tapping Sean on the shoulder and he gives us the information that we want every time, we'll never feel that pain. I will never fix the core problem.
And I think that the bit that I've really learned is being clear about the waste and being conscious of the waste gets you thinking about those things, and you stop being mindless like that. And that's the key point.
I do have to make a comment here. Both of you have been to Japan, so I wondered how big an influence Japan and the deep thinking that goes on in there has to do with why you guys came up with this stuff.
Well, Japan was, we didn't go together. We
No,
were
just separate weeks.
But it was just profound. You see how things should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
go and
there we
visit-
go.
you
There
go
you
and
It's,
go.
it's mind blowing. If anyone hasn't been, it's just a must.
Yeah,
A must
I like
do.
that.
A
You
must
see
do.
how things should be. I love that. That's so true. Okay, next question. Keep going.
Okay, this is from Robert, and we've already answered one part of it. How did you land on your 8 wastes? Have your 8 wastes changed over time, or do you expect that they will? So the last part you already said they will.
I think we pretty much answered the whole question, don't you think?
But how did you come up with those 8 wastes? How did you actually come up with them? Did you talk to the team? Do you have a team meeting?
Yeah. It does come back to fix what bugs you. Like what annoys me, what makes me like walk off a little bit angry or keep me up at night.
And like, we're a small company. There's only 7 people in our organization. So you look at where the pain is how I would describe it. If you want to find a waste, what's painful, what keeps you up at night?
Okay, let's keep going. Richard, next question. Good point.
Okay, next one. If you're naming your own waste, can there be more than just 8? Absolutely, the answer is.
Yeah, it can be more or less.
More or less.
More or less.
I would actually counsel to go
Or less.
to start with. You
Yeah,
get
70
focus
is
on
good.
the criticals. Yeah.
I mean, the key really is to fix what bugs you, right? That's the key.
But
Okay.
Richard, I would say it goes, I think the point we're discovering, naming your waste is so important, because you won't see it until you give it a name.
Mhm.
That's,
you give it the
good
wrong
point.
name.
Okay, fix what bugs you, but name it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay, so be
All right,
very
so-
detailed. Go ahead.
Here's another one from Tim. This is interesting. To name your waste, I guess you also need to be able to name your value, which some functional groups won't exactly follow the definition of that which the customer is willing to pay for.
Good point.
That's quite
Yeah.
it's quite an interesting comment. So you got to
It's
name your
really-
own value.
Yeah, I think it's a really good one. Like I'm sort of our sales function in a way, but talking to other lean people, sales is one of the functions that most people struggle to get engaged with. And it's really looking at, well, where's your opportunity? Why aren't you selling more? There's so many KPIs you could pick where waste is for sales: cost of customer acquisition, repeat customers, customer website conversions, cost per clicks.
I think the bottom line is there's a yin and a yang to this. There's both the things that irritate the hell out of you, and what are the things that you really need to be doing. You need to be looking at both of those. I think that's the point there with what was being made.
Yeah, where you're spending your money has a lot to do with
Right.
it.
Okay, next question.
Okay, 2 more to go and then we're finished. So here's one. Any improvements with working in a remote environment? So think about that. If you're working in a remote environment, Can you think of any wastes that might occur to help Thiago?
Yeah, I can think of one related to the last question, non-value added communication.
Okay, very
So,
interesting.
Useless emails, useless meetings, ineffective communication. And, you know, there you go.
Streamline your communications.
Again, we've been
Wow.
talking to people in the lean world about this prior to the meeting, and that was one that really resonated with people.
Well, we always
Yeah.
used to say that a picture's worth 1,000 words and a video's worth 1,000 pictures. I mean, the guy, when you did the promo video for this tour, that was worth 1,000 pictures. It was incredible. Okay, last question.
Wow.
Are you currently applying any lean initiatives to your supply chain? And how are you dealing with the exponential lead time increases on components? Okay, that's from Sean.
Yeah, well, consolidating, that'd be one of the ways we have variations. So we're trying to reduce the number of, for example, processors. We're trying to get me to add a new processor to a bomb. You know, you're going to have a fight because I want to keep that small. So we can, unfortunately, we do have to buy a little bit of inventory to guard against
Usually
this.
committed by customers.
Yes, of course, yeah, committed by customers. So if you let's say you use 10 processors, 10 different processors, now you've got 10 problems. But if you narrow that down to only using 3, you've got 3 problems. You can buy a little bit of stock, and if one project, this project goes gone, and you're still using it for this project.
So for example, if you've got that same processor in 6 different products, you can spread the risk among, you know, you've got inventory, but you're going to use it somewhere. Versus if everybody's using a different one, then that risk multiplies. You could look at it all, but in one way you're increasing it, but I don't see it that way.
Awesome.
Wow.
Patrick, Tom, incredible.
Yeah, absolutely
okay.
incredible.
Incredible.
We
And
really
you
enjoyed
know
it.
what?
Thanks for everybody for
Thank you for the
watching.
opportunity.
Okay,
It's got everybody
If
thinking.
anybody wants to come and visit us for a tour, we're really open to have anybody. Just
Anybody.
let us know. Contact us through the website.
Brought to you by paulakers.net, where you'll find all Paul's books and lean resources for free, including the new 2-second Lean Play app, like Audible, but free. To listen to Lean is Lean on the 2-second Lean Play app at paulakers.net.